Hello, everybody, and welcome back to a brand new series that we're going to be starting out here on the channel, where basically we're going to take a bunch of characters from different settings and types of media that are not Marvel characters, and we're going to be trying to recreate them in Marvel Crisis Protocol. So we're going to be going through using the lovely tool Jarvis Protocol provides for us here with their custom card creator to try and make what my best approximation of these characters would be in Marvel Crisis Protocol. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to this series. This is something I've kind of already played around with a little bit on my own just for fun, but I think it could be a really fun way, almost of kind of doing some minor play testing just through making these videos. Talking through the decisions, first of all, is going to make me slightly more aware of kind of what the power level might be. It might be one of those things where I think it's fine, but then I say it out loud and I'm like, ooh, no, that's way too powerful or way too weak. And then the other side of it is obviously I can get some feedback from you guys because I am not a professional game designer, so I'm probably not going to hit it perfect every time. So yeah, that's kind of the gist of things. So we're starting things out with the most adjacent to Marvel thing I could think of, which is DC. So what we're going to be doing basically is every month that the series is running for, we're going to be doing weekly characters from the same universe, and then every month we'll kind of jump over to a different theme, and we will come back and revisit some that I'm really feeling, or maybe you guys were really enjoying. Like DC is almost definitely one we'll come back to in the future. But yeah, I think we'll start out with this one. We'll do a chunk of the Justice League this month, and then we'll move on from there and see how things are going. So today we are doing Arkham Batman, specifically the version of Batman from the Arkham games, those being Arkham Asylum, Arkham City, Arkham Origins, and Arkham Knight. And I chose to go with this version of Batman because I think I had a cool idea for how I want to make this Batman a reality. And yeah, that's kind of the entire justification there is I had a cool idea that I thought worked really well specifically with that version of Batman. It's also a version of Batman I know very well. I've played through all of those games and I love them. So yeah, we're going to go ahead and do that. But we're going to start out all of the episodes in this series with a very brief look at the character's wiki page, just to kind of get an idea for anyone who's not as familiar with the character of what types of powers they might have, and just kind of a brief rundown on the characters. So in this case, it's Batman. Everyone knows Batman, so we probably won't have to spend too much time there. One thing I will say, however, before we jump over to the wiki page is that if you haven't played the Arkham games and you do plan to in the future, just be careful, maybe skip ahead on this part, because there are some actually fairly major spoilers just in the immediate character blurb, because we are going specifically off of the Arkham wiki for this one. I figured for the powers and abilities and things, it would be a little bit more accurate to do it based on the one that we're looking at. So unfortunately, there are a few spoilers there. So yeah, if you're planning on playing through the games, maybe skip like 2 minutes into the video here. Alrighty, so jumping over to the wiki page here, so we have Batman, and yeah, we're just going to read part of this blurb. This is a long blurb, and I don't want to read through the entire thing here, especially since some of it is kind of out of scope. But when his parents were gunned down in front of him, young Bruce Wayne resolved to rid Gotham City of the criminal element that took their lives. He trained extensively to achieve mental and physical perfection, in addition to mastering martial arts, some keywording there, detective techniques, and criminal psychology. When he returned, Bruce was inspired by a bat in his ancestral home of Wayne Manor. He then became Batman, who fought crime with the aid of specialized gadgets and vehicles and operated out of a secret Batcave hidden underneath Wayne Manor. He led a successful 12-year crime-fighting career until he was publicly unmasked by Scarecrow during the Arkham Knight incident. We're not going to read much further there because that's when we get into really heavy spoilers and things like that. So we're not going to worry too much about that since I think we kind of get the gist at this point. Normal dude uses gadgets and is a master martial artist. So yeah, we're going to scroll down just ever so briefly here. They've got all of his history and things like that, but we don't care about that because we're just looking at what he can do. So I think the big things we're going to be looking at here are gadgets and his attributes and skills. So looking at gadgets here, Arkham Batman has a huge host of gadgets, and there's no way we could possibly fit all of these into a single Marvel Crisis Protocol character card. So we're definitely going to have to be selective here. So the ones that I'm going to be trying to take advantage of here, firstly, the Batarang. Obviously, this is, very distinctive, very Batman. It's kind of, if you're making a Batman and you're not including Batarangs in some way, what are you doing? But yeah, basically, they're just little things he can throw at enemies, and specifically to stun or knock them over. So maybe we can work that in there as well somehow. Then he has a few others. One that I'm going to be taking advantage of here is the smoke pellet. He uses this to escape when enemies start shooting at him and stuff, so he can use this to get out of a fight. And I've got a few ideas on how we could play around with that. He's got his grappling hook, which he can use to move around really quickly. That's definitely going to be something useful as well. As for the other ones, if I'm feeling inspired by anything, we might use some of the other ones, but I'm not going to spend a bunch of time and read through all of them. That just kind of seems a little unnecessary. And some of these are even like upgrades on existing things, so we're not going to worry too much about that sort of thing. But yeah, we've kind of got the big ones, as most famed ones there, so we'll be focusing primarily on those. Next, we get to his attributes and skills. I'm not going to read the entire blurb of text here, but he's got immense human, physical, and mental attributes. So he has human strength, immense human strength, human speed, durability, stamina, agility, reflexes, senses, intelligence, immense human healing. Sure, apparently that's part of his thing. I don't think we're going to be throwing healing factor or anything on him, but I mean, and yeah, the Arkham Batman definitely heals faster than the average human does. Longevity, sure. So yeah, he's definitely peak human physical form. And they do mention intelligence here too, because he's definitely not lacking in brain power either. Next, he has Master Tactician and Strategist. Alrighty, we could maybe incorporate something with that. Trained in his gadgets, of course, we're already going to be factoring those in. He's a Master Scientist, Inventor, Detective, Martial Artist. We'll definitely be factoring that in there. Computer expert, Master of Stealth, which is something we're going to be playing with in a big way here, because I've got some really cool ideas, I think. Indomitable Will, that's going to be big as well. I think that's gonna kind of tie in alongside that intelligence to maybe some of his defenses there. Interrogation could be an interesting one if we want to play that way. Tracking, acrobat, tons of things here. He is jack of all trades and master of all of them as well. So yeah, there's a lot of things that Batman is capable of doing, but I think you guys get the general idea here. So yeah, let's go ahead and start getting to actually creating this character. Alrighty, so for anyone who hasn't played the games before, the Batman Arkham games very much use this very interesting, very fun stealth system that I believe is called the Predator system, where basically Batman can kind of switch between his normal free flow combat mode where he's punching things and he's flipping all around the place, and that's where you really get into that master martial artist side, or he can kind of go into Predator mode, his stealth mode, where he gets like X-ray vision, he can see through walls and stuff like that. He can he's out of sight, enemies can't see him, he can sneak up behind them, he can get instant takedowns and knockouts and things like that. So I really wanted to take advantage of kind of that cool thing from the games, really try to recreate that experience on the table. So we're actually going to be doing him as a transform character, which might be a little ambitious for the first character in this series, but we're going to be building him in both normal mode and Predator mode here, and seeing if we can kind of make a really interesting transform character. So before we get too far into anything, we're going to have to decide what his base defensive stats here are, his threat, and that sort of thing. So personally, I didn't want to put him too high because I do want to try and build an actual team out of this. So even though you could really easily make the argument Batman should be, a 6+ or whatever you want to do, because, he's gone toe-to-toe with Superman and things like that in the past, I think we're going to try to keep him a little bit more grounded. We're going to bring him to a 4 threat level here. And again, you could definitely do a whole range of threat levels if you wanted with Batman. But just for this, I think, especially since the Arkham one doesn't quite get to the levels of like fighting Superman usually, he still pulls off some incredibly impressive feats, but I think it's fair to put him at about a 4 threat level. From there, going out to the defenses, keeping in mind that 4 threat we've done. Personally, I think it's always more interesting if you have at least one of them is weaker than the other two. And from what we were reading there, he's in peak human condition, and he's got a indomitable, I think was the word they used, will. So personally, to me, I think the stronger 2 attributes should be physical and mystic. Meanwhile, that energy defense still not going to be bad. We're not going to put him down to a 2 or anything like that, but I think we leave that as a 3 just to give him a weaker side. Personally, I think that'll just make him more interesting, and yeah, I'm always for that. As for health, he's not particularly squishy for sure. I'm not going to throw him down to like a 4 or a 5, but I think a 6 is fair. That seems to be kind of the average for most 4 threats. So I think if we put him as a 6 health model and we give him some okay defensive tech, he should feel reasonably fine. He's going to be a size 2 because, yeah, he's a big guy, but he's not that big. So I think size 2 fits there. And then for movement speed, I think it's fair to kind of go towards the medium speed here, but we'll talk about that one in a moment. In Predator mode, we do have the opportunity to change any of those numbers, and there is one that I actually do want to change. While he's in Predator mode, I think he should be a little bit faster, so we're going to move him up to a long speed in Predator mode. The idea will kind of be he can zip around in Predator mode, get all over the place really, really quickly, and then he can take advantage of those kind of takedown style attacks, and we'll try to work those in as best as we can without just having an attack that says you just one-shot a character, because that's not exactly fair. But we're gonna kind of work around that idea of, he's gonna take things down, he's gonna zip around the board in this mode, but he might not necessarily be as bulky, as durable to attacks when he actually does get hit. So that's kind of the way we're going with this. But as it normally goes, we're going to start with the normal mode here, and we're going to kind of work from there. So the first thing I want to give him on his normal mode here is just a basic strike. This is just going to be his, I'm going to call it his free flow strike, because that is the name of their combat system that they're using in the Arkham games. So it's a nice little nod to that, I think. And one of the things with the Arkham games is when he makes this strike, he goes zipping across the room to the enemy. So we're going to make this a range 3 strike. I don't think it needs to hit too hard. I think we can go with just kind of an average hitting strength there with a 5. And of course, this is going to be his basic strike, so we're going to keep it at 0 power. We are going to give him a couple special rules on this, though. The first one is going to be to place him beside the character, because he's zipping over to them. It doesn't really make sense that he gets to stay far away from them, so he's going to place himself beside the character, and then of course it's going to gain him power, and I think we're going to go the builder route on this one, because I kind of want to use the batarang as potentially a gainer, or maybe not. We'll see what we decide to do with the idea of maybe that giving out stun or something like that. All right, so with that on the card, I think we do move into the Batarang as his next attack. So we've got our place on that, and I thought about maybe making the place on that a trigger, but I think it should be mandatory for him. It doesn't really make sense for him to be able to hit them from far away and still be spinning back there, and honestly, in the Arkham games, sometimes that's actually a big inconvenience that it does always send you to them, so you have to deal with it, whether you wanted to or not. But we are also going to give him another attack here, and that is going to be the Batarang attack. So yeah, there's a couple ways that we could take the Batarang attack here. This could be one of those things where it's kind of like a mini spender, where we make it a little bit more effective. We could even take into account the fact that in some, if not all of the games, he gains the ability to kind of launch multiple Batarangs at the same time, almost make it like a beam attack or something like that. We could do something like that if we wanted to. It mentioned giving out the stun thing, so we could do that, or we could just kind of do the older MCP design thing of, he's got his builder that's throwing 5 dice, and he's got a ranged gainer throwing 4 dice. But personally, I think that is the most boring option. So I think we're gonna keep it at 4 dice, and we're gonna bump it up to, I think range 4 is reasonable. You could make an argument for 5. I don't think it's really necessary. And I think we're just going to give it one thing here, and I'm gonna lean towards stun on this one. We're gonna do a wild stun for this, I think, and then maybe this is something that could still be a gainer, and that would be totally fine. Actually, you know what? Yeah, I'm kind of talking myself into that. So we're gonna make this a gainer, and it's going to have a wild stun. Alrighty, and that is the Batarang all done. Now, at this point, we could consider giving him a spender, and maybe we'll go back and do that afterwards, but I really want to make it kind of focused so that the heavy damage dealing side of this is really going to be on the Predator side. I want to have that kind of takedown feel to the Predator side, where he's going to be a lot slower to take enemies down on this side, even if he might be a little bit more consistent at it. So for now, we're going to kind of move away from attacks and start thinking about some superpowers here. So the first one we can do is pretty easy. This is going to be the Martial Artist superpower. We've seen this on a million characters before, and I mean, they were very explicit that Batman has the kind of martial artist capability. The real question here comes into whether we want to do the kind of master martial artist, whether we want it to be one of the ones that goes up to range 3, do we want it to include mystic attacks? Personally, I'm going to lean towards physical and energy only, and I'm kind of on the fence between range 2 or 3, but I think we're going to do range 2 because I have a kind of cool idea for anything outside of that. All right, so now Mr. Wayne is a martial artist, and it's just the standard version of martial artist here, so not too crazy. But like I said, I did have an idea for when those attacks come from outside of range 2, and I think this is going to be one of the ways that we can transform here. So we're going to use that kind of smoke pellet idea here that we saw in his gadgets there. And we're going to make this a reactive superpower that's going to happen when he gets attacked from outside of range 2, where basically the idea is it'll kind of work like a vibranium shield, so he'll add some extra dice, but he's still taking the hit. He's still going to get shot here, but he's going to add some extra dice, hopefully, not take too much damage, and then after the attack, he's going to get to transform, go into that Predator mode, because now he's dropped that smoke pellet, and from here, he can kind of start trying to sneak up and get his takedowns and things like that. So yeah, we're going to go ahead and write that out. Alrighty, so we have the smoke cloud ability now, and I didn't actually discuss the thought process in this, but I made it to cost 2 power. I think that's pretty reasonable given that, that's a vibranium shield style effect. So yeah, I think it'll work reasonably well for something like that. And yeah, now that said, I don't want that to be the only way he can transform because that leaves it way too up to your opponent. And another thing that I really want to factor in here is I want to be able to start the game in Predator mode. So we're going to be adding a ability to kind of start every round in Predator mode, I think is kind of the idea here if you want to. But I want to kind of play it to the longer you've been in the fight, the more the enemies are very aware that you happen to be there, so the harder it is to get back into that Predator mode. So I kind of want to do something where, based on the round number during the power phase, you can spend power to transform into Predator mode. So the first round means you're starting out with 0 power. Going into the second round and so on, you'll have to have gained power to be able to go back into Predator mode if you lost it, because obviously that's going to be one of the big things on the other side is if you get detected, you have lost the Predator mode, so you got to be kind of careful with it. So yeah, that's kind of what we're going to be going for. So yeah, I'll go ahead and add that to his card here. All right, so pretty simple wording on this one. Stealth entrance during the power phase. He'll just spend power based on the round number and transform. Now looking at this, we definitely do have enough room here to add a spender, so I'm going to think on what that could be, but in the meantime, I think now that we've done our ways of transferring into Predator mode, I think it's time we go ahead and we build out Predator mode a little bit here. So the first thing is, I think for Predator mode, it's going to be very much a kind of one hit sort of build, where it's going for this big, super hard hitting attack, but that's the only thing it's doing. It's got no way of, gaining power. It's not no way of throwing, doing extra kind of skirmishy things. That's not what Predator mode is about. It's about getting that takedown. So yeah, we're gonna kind of try to work that into this. So I'm thinking we're gonna make this a relatively high dice attack. Obviously, we're keeping in mind that this is going to be a 0 cost attack that you can technically do as early as turn 1, and you're long moving after a transform, so you are punching the midline. This is going to be a hard hitting attack that your opponent's going to have to watch for. So we're going to make this, we're going to call it our stealth takedown here, and dice on this is going to be tricky to balance, and I am leaning towards either 7 or 8 is what I'm saying. It's going to be physical because he's just punching them really, but I'm leaning towards 7 or 8 with a few conditionals on it. So we're gonna go ahead and say 8. It might be too much, but we'll see, especially since we are giving him a spender on the other side. I think I've decided. So maybe it'll be too much. Maybe we should tone it down to 7. We'll see. But it's going to be range 2. He's got to get up close and personal. It's not something he can just do whenever he wants. But we're gonna have we're gonna have one main clause to this. So if there are any non-dazed enemy characters that are close to him after he's completed this attack, he immediately has to transform. So basically, he wants to pick off someone who's by themselves and he wants to take them down. Because if he doesn't take them down, he's forced out of this mode. He's back into the other one, which means, it's going to cost him 2 power next turn to go back. And, he's going to lose any of his kind of stealth focus things that he's going to have on this side. So, yeah, we're gonna be kind of giving him some downsides to this, hopefully, to try and balance out all of the power you're throwing into this for a zero cost attack. Alrighty, so looking at this again, we have the stealth takedown here. And yeah, so if there's any non-dazed enemies within 3 of him after the attack is resolved, he is going to have to transform. Obviously, that is giving him good extra bit of distance here, so that's not bad, but it's going to kind of suck for him if he's, not able to get back into this mode right away. Especially since if you're doing this, say round 1, you were able to get this punch off, you didn't kill the target. Well, now you're on this side, but you have 0 power, so you're not going to be going back into Predator mode next turn unless your opponent gives it to you. So it can kind of become one of those things where, now next turn you're going to use your Batarangs or your Free Flow Strike to try and build that power back up to get back into stealth mode. So yeah, that's kind of the idea, is you'll realistically only be in stealth mode every other turn unless you're getting those kills. And if you're getting those kills, then you're presumably already softening them up, or you're just rolling really good dice, which turns out that's sometimes the nature of MCP. Alright, so there's a bunch of things I want to put on this card that aren't attacks in stealth mode, and maybe we're going to end up going a little overboard here. We're going to find out. But I think one of the ones we can do right away that's going to be pretty kind of safe to put on here is going to be his superior stealth, is what I think I'm going to call it here. So basically, it's going to be like stealth, but we're going to limit it to range 2, and that's because I think range 2 is what we're going to kind of call our detection range. If an enemy gets within range 2 of us, we're out of luck. So superior stealth is basically just going to be, it's going to be a passive that's going to have the exact text to stealth, except it's going to be range 2 instead of 3. Alright, so we've got superior stealth now, but I think it's a little bit too easy for our opponent to manipulate right now, so I want to give us something else to kind of be able to get out of that range 2 band there. So I'm going to give him, I think I'm going to call it stealth dodge. And basically the idea of this is if an enemy lands within 2 of him, he can spend, whatever number of power, I'm leaning towards 2 or 3 here, to advance away from the enemy character, and that's it. If an enemy character ends a movement, he gets to advance away and hopefully not break his detection here. So yeah, this is going to be an interesting one because obviously this is going to make him really, really good against kind of melee, close combat oriented enemies. So you're going to have to be kind of careful what sorts of enemies you throw into him here. But yeah, I think something like this is kind of necessary to make this side not just a, you might get to use it first or second round and then it's dead for the rest of the game sort of thing, especially since he doesn't really have any way of transforming on his own turn. So unless you've got priority, it's just not happening. So yeah, we're going to call it stealth dodge here. And yeah, the idea will be if an enemy ends within 2, I think we're going to cost it at 3 because it is really, really strong, but I don't think he's going to have good power generation. So I think costing it higher than 3 is probably too much, and even then 2 might feel better, but we'll see. Alright, so now that we have the stealth dodge, we do need to add the actual detective superpower, or detected superpower rather here. So this is going to be a passive, I think is the best way to go about this. But basically we're going to say if an enemy character is ending their activation within range of him, or if he ends within range of an enemy character, he's going to transform. And I think we're going to make the range 2 for this, like I said. And then I also want to add a clause to this that I wasn't thinking about earlier when I kind of drafted up my sample for this, where if he gets attacked, he also has to transform because that just kind of makes sense. That is just kind of how that works to me. So yeah, we're gonna go ahead and write that up. Alrighty, so we have the detected superpower written out here. So if an enemy ends within 2, or he ends in an activation within 2 of an enemy, non-dazed enemy, because obviously we don't want to care about the ones we've already knocked out. That would be terrible for our stealth takedown and things like that. He's going to be forced to transform, and when he's targeted by an attack, after the attack is resolved, he does transform. So if you do get to attack him, if he doesn't have the power to stealth dodge and you can get into his face while he's in stealth mode, he doesn't have any defensive tech here, and I think I want to leave it that way. I want that to be a weakness that he has here. If he runs too light on power and he doesn't have that stealth dodge online to get away from your melee attacks, he's gonna take a hit for it most likely. So he's still got solid dice and not a squishy health pool necessarily, but he can definitely take a hit. And then the last thing I want to give him on this side of the card, and it's going to feel a little empty, I think, but I think that's okay. I think Stealth Takedown is strong enough to make that okay. So the last thing we're going to give him here is his grappling hook, I think. This was something that I knew I wanted to incorporate, and I think it just makes the most sense to incorporate it on the Predator version of Batman, where in the games you're swinging from the different things on the ceiling that you can use to stay out of sight and things like that. So it kind of makes sense to give it to him on this side. We're gonna make it to cost 2 power here, and yeah, it's just gonna be your kind of standard. Standard web swing sort of ability. So it's going to be called Grappling Hook, and it's just going to place him within 3 of his current locations. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Alrighty, so now he is equipped with his Grappling Hook. And one thing I forgot to mention is I am also going to make it once per turn. I think it's just too much mobility if it's not. For only 2 power, it kind of makes him absurd as an objective holder, which he already might be. In places where you can start the game with more than 1 power, I think he can potentially be really, really obnoxious for just kind of being able to be like, okay, I am a safe grab because I am a long move that got a bump at the beginning of the game, and now I've got an objective, and I'm super stealth for the rest of the game, so we're dealing with that. But yeah, so I think that is going to be enough for the Predator mode. I did also consider the Grappling Hook having the web swing style effect of adding a die or 2 to a stealth takedown, because I think that would be interesting, but I think it might be a little too much. So we're gonna not do that. But yeah, we're gonna go ahead and jump back over to his normal mode now, I think, and kind of consider what we want to do for a kind of spender style thing here, because one thing he is really lacking still is power generation. He's got a lot of things to spend it on, but not very much to generate it. He's got a 5 dice builder, which isn't anything too special, and a gainer. So aside from his power phase power, he's probably going to be running really, really tight. So we got to be careful with the spender, because I think it's very, very easy to give him a spender that he can never afford, since I think he's already running a lot. So yeah, I'm gonna spend a minute thinking about this one actually. Okay, so I think I've come up with an idea, and this might be a little too pushed, but we'll see. And at the end of the day, this isn't a real Marvel Crisis Protocol character, so if it's too strong, it's too strong. So my idea is basically one of the things you can do when you're taking down the bigger enemies in the Arkham games is you can basically start a beatdown on them, where you basically just mash the attack button and you put in tons of hits onto the same target, and then eventually they go down after you've done like 30 or something like that hits. Obviously that would be way too strong for this game to be able to just be like, here's just 30 hits. So I'm thinking of a kind of lower cost spender here. Nothing too crazy, maybe 2 or 3 cost, that is just a free flow strike effectively, but it has the added thing of, we're going to say on a wild, I think, you get to make a free flow strike attack targeting the same character, and that free flow strike gains this effect. So basically, it still has to target the same character, but on a wild, you're going to get to do it again against that same character until you don't roll the wild, or until you've taken that character down. This, in my opinion, will kind of alleviate this issue in a couple ways. First of all, it only being a wild trigger and not being something that's like adding more dice or anything like that means realistically you're not going to get this more than like 2, max 3 times. And if they're only 5 dicers, they shouldn't be hitting too hard. But the nice thing about this is that because you're making more attacks now that are specifically your free flow strike attacks, you're going to be gaining a bunch of power hopefully back from the spender, so you'll be able to use that to get back into predator mode and do your other things there. So yeah, still going to be lower dice attacks, still not going to be great against particularly bulky models, but I think potentially really, really interesting. So we're gonna try something like that. Alrighty, and we have added the beatdown attack to the card here. I did decide to bump it up to a 6 dicer, just because I want to make it a little bit more consistent to get it going, because it's not going to feel really good if you pay 2 power and you're just making a worse version of your builder that doesn't do any of the other things your builder does. So yeah, we're also going to make it a range 2, so you do have to be up close for this beatdown to actually start happening, which kind of works with the things that'll force you out of predator mode. So you know you've ended up too close to enemies. Now you have your beatdown online at least. So yeah, that's kind of the idea here, and I think I templated this correctly. We don't actually have additional attacks that gain special rules. We only have one that don't have them, like Ricochet and things like that. So not 100% sure if the templating on this is quite what it would be if AMG were to print something like this, but it's probably at least close enough. And I think that is just about going to do it for Arkham Batman here. I still feel like this side of the card is a little bit empty and I might want to add something to it, but as it currently stands, I think he might be a little bit too powerful on this side. I'm a little worried about that. I'm not 100% sure because I think he's going to be super power starved, but also he's going to hit like an absolute truck for very low amounts of power, so it'll be interesting to see how that kind of plays out. And I do plan on, trying to give some of the characters that I make in this series a spin at some point. Maybe on the channel, maybe off, depends how much you guys are into this series. But yeah, so that is going to be our Arkham Batman here. So this is our Predator mode here, and if you want to, pause and take a closer look, feel free to. And then we have our normal mode here as well. So yeah, you're going to start in the normal mode, but you can choose to immediately enter stealth if you want. As the game goes on, it's going to get more expensive to get into stealth. Round 6, it's going to cost you 6 power. So you're going to have to keep that in mind. It's going to get harder and harder to get into that stealth mode as the game goes on. But when you're there, you're going to be hitting like a truck. Meanwhile, on the other side, you're going to be playing that more, free flow combat. You're going to be able to zip around all over the place with your free flow strikes and start a beatdown and, maybe get really, really lucky and build a bunch of power off of that. So if you do want to just kind of go the weight of a million tax kind of direction, you can. You're also a little bit bulkier on the side. You got martial artist, you got the smoke cloud for when you're outside of that. So you're going to be able to take advantage of that to just kind of try and stay alive as much as you can. Your biggest weakness is probably going to be mystic attacks within range 2. Those are going to be rough for you because you can't smoke cloud those, and you can't martial artist those. Or alternatively, just range attacks at range 3 or 4 or whatever aren't going to be your best thing in the world. You can smoke cloud up to 5 dice, which certainly isn't bad, but no mods on that means it's definitely a bit of a weakness to him. So I don't think he's super bulky or anything like that, but I think he's kind of got the kind of skirmishing output to make up for that. He's going to be really, really good at just kind of bulleting to back points and things like that near the end of the round, just kind of saying, hey, I am here now, and I'm throwing 8 dice at the model that you had here before, so we'll see what happens there. If I take them out, then I guess I'm doing it again next round. If I don't take them out, then hey, I've at least contested your point. So that's kind of the idea there. And then yeah, running him away with an objective near the end of the game is also going to be just probably a really viable strategy with a character like this. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with how he turned out. I think it's a cool theme. I definitely could have done the more traditional Batman, keep him as one card. I think that also would have been really, really interesting. But personally, I really wanted to start this series out with something a little bit more unique. And you don't see too many transform characters even in the actual game. So having a transform character, I think, is just a really interesting way of going about it. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this kind of kickoff to this new series. Definitely let me know what you guys think. Do you guys think he's too strong? Is he too weak? What would you have added? What would you have removed? Very, very curious to hear. And obviously, hopefully as this series goes on, I will get better at designing these to be more balanced, because I don't know, maybe you guys are looking at this saying this is one of the weakest characters you've ever seen, or maybe you're thinking he's way too strong and 8 dice turn 1 should just be impossible. So very, very curious to hear what you guys are thinking on this one. But yeah, that is going to do it for me for this one. So we're gonna kind of keep this going. We're gonna be doing a DC character every week through the month of November. So we'll see what comes next. I'm thinking probably Superman next. He'll also be the leader of our Justice League in this case. So we'll have to design a leadership there as well, which will be really, really interesting. And yeah, the kind of idea here is maybe, a few months down the line when I've revisited DC and maybe done some villains, we could even kind of bring them all back for a battle report or something like that, as like a bonus content thing. So if that's something you guys would be into, definitely let me know down below. But for now, that's going to do it for this one. So I hope you guys enjoyed. And until next time, have a great day, everybody. Peace.